The first edition of the College Football Playoff Rankings were released on Tuesday night. Tennessee ranked number 7. Who would Tennessee play if the playoffs started this week? That and the rest of the field here on your bonus edition of Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you. Tuesday evening, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane. We're going to have an abbreviated little bonus content show here reacting to the first installment of the College Football Playoff Rankings. Appreciate you guys for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen every single day. Whether this is you're watching and listening to this here on a Wednesday morning, don't forget a normal Wednesday show is still out there. And, I went ahead and recorded that and got it out there. It's scheduled to go for the normal time. So if you're listening to this, watching this, remember there's a normal Wednesday show still out there to check out as well. But wanted to get something out there, here on a Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. Just kind of reacting to what was announced earlier this evening here Tuesday night on ESPN. The first college football playoff rankings, and Tennessee comes in ranked number 7. A little bit higher than I thought Tennessee was probably going to be ranked. I thought Tennessee, seeing the different projections and everything, sure, there were some that had Tennessee as a 7 or an 8 right now. There were a couple that had Tennessee as a 10 or an 11 right now. Again, that strength of schedule isn't really helping Tennessee. And as we've seen, as we talked on Tuesday's show, and as we'll kind of paint the picture here again, there's a lot of strength of schedules that don't look very good from these teams that are in the college football playoff rankings right now. But, again, it's easier to say, well, the first ones don't matter. And it's true. It's where you finish. But if you continue to win and hold pace, where you're ranked initially plays a factor in how quickly you can climb the polls, right? We see it in the AP every single year. I mean, if you're preseason 23rd, it might take a little while to get up there in that top 10, or if you're preseason number 2 or number 3, and it's just one of those years where you're not very good, you'll get some grace by the voters for quite some time until you ultimately show that you're not a very good football team. You're an 8-4, you're a 7-5, or even a 9-3 football team. You might hang around there in that top 10, but nonetheless, Tennessee's ranked number 7. And if the playoffs started today, Tennessee would be hosting Indiana, who gets an at-large bid. And Indiana's the 8th seed, but will be Indiana's ranked 8th, but would be seeded 9th. Tennessee is ranked 7th, would be seeded 8th. And why is that? Well, because BYU, a conference champion, if the playoffs started right, today, projecting BYU being the conference champion, they get an automatic bye, whereas the number 2 seed, Ohio State, would be the 5th. The number 2 ranking Ohio State would actually be the 5th seed. So remember, I know that's kind of confusing, but we got to remember this in this new era of the playoffs. The top 4 seeds must be conference champions. Okay, that's important to remember here. So even though Ohio State is ranked number 2 in this first college football playoff rankings, they're slated as the 5th seed because, again, you've got to be conference champions, and this model BYU would be a conference champion. So we'll get into the matchups and all that here in a moment. We'll dive down into what that matchup would look like against Indiana just for fun, a little 2-segment show. But first, the rankings in total here. Number 1, Oregon, no shock there. Number 2 is Ohio State at 7-1 record. Number 3 is Georgia, 7-1 record. Miami from the ACC is number 4 with a 9-0 record. Texas from the SEC, a 7-1 record. Penn State from the Big Ten, a 7-1 record. Tennessee, of course, from the SEC, 7-1 record. Indiana, a 9-0 record there is number 8. BYU, not an 8-0 record there is at number 9 from the Big 12. Notre Dame Independent is at a 7-1 record. They're ranked 10th. Alabama gets in the first edition of the college football rankings, the top 12. Ranked number 11 with a 6-2 record, and they're the only team in the 12-team projection right now with 2 losses. And then Boise State from the group of 5 gets that 12th spot at 7-1. Remember, top 4 seeds must be conference champions. If a group of 5 conference champion is ranked higher than another conference champion, then it would be that 4th seed, but that's got to be a pretty big leap, right? So in this model, with BYU being the conference champion from the Big 12, it would take a team like, I don't know, Army. Army's the only other team that cracked the top 25 that's from group of 5. Yeah, if I'm not missing anybody. Army would have to finish ranked higher than BYU and win its conference to get that first round bye, if that makes sense. So those are the 12. The teams just missing out on the top 12 would be SMU, playing in the ACC. Remember that. Number 13, Texas A&M, who's coming off a loss. Number 14, LSU is number 15. Ole Miss is 16. Iowa State 17. Pittsburgh 18. Kansas State 19. Colorado's 20, Washington State 21, Louisville 22, Clemson 23. They just had a bad loss. Missouri 24th, and then Army, the team I just referenced, with an 8-0 record, sitting there at number 25. So it was pretty neat, and I'm glad that they they were going with some tempo here to begin that show on Tuesday night. So at about 7:25ish, we had the field of play right there. And again, the way this would kind of lay out right now with the conference champions and all that. Your number one seeded Oregon would be your number one ranked Oregon would be the 1 seed, a first round bye, winning the Big Ten conference champion. Georgia would be the SEC champion, ranked third actually, seeded second. You've got Miami winning the ACC, would be ranked 4th, seeded third with a first round bye, and BYU ranked 9th, but winning the Big 12 would be the 4th seed and having that first round bye. So the rest of the field would kind of look like this. Boise State from the group of 5 would be ranked 12th. They would be the 12th seed on the road in the first round, taking on the 2nd seed Ohio State, who is seeded 5th. Okay, the winner of that game would get BYU. Then there's Indiana at Tennessee, and that's interesting. We'll talk more about that here in segment 2. Indiana, Tennessee, a home playoff game, hosting the Hoosiers there. 7th ranked Tennessee, 8th seed. The 8th ranked Indiana Hoosiers, 9th seed. The winner of that game would be taking on Oregon, who of course is the number 1 overall seed in the ranking. In this model, again, it is the 11th seeded Alabama Crimson Tide playing on the road at 5th ranked 6th seeded Texas, and the winner of that game would be playing against Miami. And then Notre Dame, the 10th seed, would play at Penn State, the 6th ranked team, 7th seed, and the winner of that would get Georgia. Again, reminder, top 4 seeds must be conference champions, okay? The first round games in this model, again, would be Boise State's, winner of the Big 12. The first round games I just mentioned would be Boise State at Ohio State, Alabama at Texas, Notre Dame at Penn State, and Indiana at Tennessee. The SEC and the Big Ten each had 4 teams in the top 12, so that's kind of been one of the big talking points. How many teams will the SEC get in? Who's calling the shots in college football? Greg Sankey is. Who has the SEC been working hand in hand with throughout this entire process and still trying to expand the college football playoffs and worked for future years to come? It's the Big Ten and the SEC, that alliance, right, going hand in hand. And so 4 teams in this model in the first rankings, 4 teams from the SEC, 4 teams from the Big Ten get in. Undefeated BYU, the lone Big 12 program, and unbeaten Miami is the only ACC team. Again, Clemson lost, so they're not in it. SMU has a loss on the schedule, and their strength of schedule is not very good, so they're just out. Boise State, only loss was at Oregon back in early September. The highest ranked team from the group of 5, and that's why they made the field right there. The first 4 round games will be played at the higher seeded teams' home campuses. Those start December the 20th and 21st. The 4 quarterfinal contests will be staged at VRBO Fiesta Bowl, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Rose Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl on the 31st of December and January the 1st. The 2 semifinal games will be played in the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl on January 9th and 10th. And then the National Championship will be played on January the 20th in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So, cool. I'm glad this is here. This is neat. This is fun. We're going to be doing this every single Tuesday nights. So far, there's not a whole lot that I disagree with. I mean, we can talk about the seedings and all that. I mean, Alabama getting there at number 11. I mean, is that just because it's Alabama? Probably so. I understand that the Football Power Index loves Alabama. Even with 2 losses, has the Crimson Tide ranked 3rd. So I'm not sure that Alabama should have gotten in right now, but here we are. It's a 2-loss team from the SEC, joining fellow SEC teams, Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia in the top 12. BYU probably has a gripe being ranked 9th. But again, that strength of schedule for BYU Goodness, you got to go all the way down here. Let's see here. BYU, strength of schedule is... Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. BYU strength of schedule 61st in the country, 61st. So, again, that's probably why BYU's ranked number 9. Indiana, which we'll get into here in a moment, undefeated right now. That is not going to stay that way for long. Georgia being ranked 3rd. I think Ohio State's a little bit overranked right now. It's only losses to Oregon, I understand that, but I don't think Ohio State is very good, at least as good as what it's been. So I could have Georgia and Ohio State flip. Miami, can't really say anything about Miami right now. You kind of root for Miami just to run the table, and that way the ACC can be a one-team conference, which is kind of what this reflects. I think it's really, really important. Texas, obviously, they're at number 5, losing to Georgia 2 weeks ago. Penn State, again, Penn State is not a very good football team, but it's one of the 4 teams from the Big Ten: Tennessee, Indiana, BYU. So anyway, cool stuff. Kind of a lot of information, obviously a little information overload here, but as we go on from week to week to week, we'll kind of get the hang of this. But let's look at Indiana and look what a possible matchup with Tennessee and Indiana could look like. That's coming up next as we continue on here with this bonus show, Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Hey, Tennessee fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. We did this earlier in the week, but in case you missed it, this season so far we pulled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to athletes that you love, ensuring that all funds go to a specific player that you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and even if you receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part about it, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver on the content, you get your money back. This week, we supported Miles Kitzelman, pitched in $100. I'd love for you to join me. Even $10 makes a difference. Show Miles Kitzelman the love and keep him connected to our school. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets up your team for success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets into a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, enter the referral code Locked On, and when you enter, already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Download Roy now. Join the NIL game with no subscription and no fees. And be sure to check out Roy on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return_on-you for more info. Roy, support the players, change the game. Big shout out to our friends over at Roy, and of course our friends over at ZBiotics. ZBiotics, a pre-alcohol probiotic drink, is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It's invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotic your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you will feel your best tomorrow. Every time I have a pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on doing all my activities on a Sunday afternoon or maybe on a Friday evening when I get back to the house without a worry at all. So, again, your 3 steps. Drink pre-alcohol for best results. Make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly. Pace yourself. Hydrate. And get a good night's sleep. And enjoy tomorrow. That's step number 3. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they're going to refund you your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use their promo code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. That is ZBiotics. Hey guys, welcome back into a bonus coverage, I guess you can say here of Locked On Vols, looking at reacting to the first installment of the college football playoff rankings. And again, in this model, we have Tennessee as the 7th ranked team in the rankings, okay? The 8th seed, that's going to be confusing as all get out, is the ranking and the seed. The ranking and the seed. Again, remember, as I pointed out, and as we remember from quite some time ago, but we probably forgot up until now, I didn't forget, but you know what I'm saying? The conference champions, Power 4, or the highest seeded conference champions get a first-round bye. So that's really, really important to remember. And it's also important to remember that Notre Dame cannot get a first-round bye. Notre Dame can get as high as number 5, and that's it. I love that. Join the conference, be a big boy, Notre Dame. Don't act like your crap doesn't stink, because everybody's crap stinks. Okay. So Indiana would be at Tennessee. Guys, could you imagine a playoff game in December at Neyland Stadium? Oh my gosh, first round games. The higher seeded teams home on the campuses on December the 20th and December the 21st. We're getting ready for Christmas. We got holiday travel plans. We got the Christmas Eve coming up. We got Christmas Day coming up. But first, a game at Neyland, a college football playoff game. How cool would that be? And how cool would that be to kick off your holiday week if Tennessee hosts a playoff game, wins a playoff game, then you go on into Christmas and know you still got games to play? That'd be so much fun, man. That'd be so much fun. And in this rankings, the first one, Tennessee would be hosting Indiana. Indiana is 9-0. Indiana is 6-0 in the Big Ten. Indiana has blown past FIU 31-7 in week 1, Western Illinois 77-3 in week 2. Okay, 42-13 over UCLA. Against Charlotte, it won 52-14. Against Maryland, it won 42-28. Again, this is not an SEC schedule. Against Northwestern, 41-24 the win. Nebraska, remember when Nebraska was ranked to begin the season? 56-7 took down Nebraska. Washington 31-17. Michigan State 47-10. So somebody asked me about style points earlier in the week. Like, Indiana is doing it. I mean, they are pummeling these teams. They ain't playing nobody, Paul. I recognize that. But look at these scores. 56-7, 47-10, 41-24, 52-14. Again, Western Illinois doesn't count, but 77-3. I mean, this is how you're supposed to win games when your strength of schedule sucks. And Indiana's doing it, okay? So their 9-0 record will be it's not going to last much longer. They're going to be playing a home game against Michigan. This is not your national champion Michigan Wolverines. It could be a good game, but I would assume, I don't know who's favored. I would assume that Indiana's got to be favored in this one. Home game. Michigan's down. I would say Indiana wins this game, but on the road the next week, or actually I have a bye week, and then on the road the 23rd against Ohio State in Columbus. There's going to be a loss right there. So my question is, when that's a loss, they finish out the year against Purdue at home. My question would be, when you lose to Ohio State, depending on what that score is, if Ohio State just blitzes them, is Indiana going to fall out of the top 12? I would imagine so, right? And then who would jump in? Well, again, these first couple of teams that are out right now, Texas A&M sitting at number 14. SMU is at number 13. And SMU's schedule is not very good either, at all. But Texas A&M's is. A&M, though, has 2 losses right now. A&M would, again, need to run the table, finish the season 10-2, and be in that prime position there once Indiana, in my opinion, loses to Ohio State to take advantage of that, or one of these teams down the line. Of course, Tennessee plays Georgia. There's a lot of big games left on these schedules. So, but yeah, that's a little bit about Indiana. Again, we'll look at this resume a little bit. Indiana, according to the Football Power Index, Indiana is ranked number 10. Okay, it has a projection to finish 11-1, 11.3 wins to 1.0 losses. It's got a 17.2% chance of winning the Big Ten, an 86.5% chance of the playoffs. So, according to the FBI, a loss at Ohio State might not do a whole lot of damage to Indiana. It would be one loss there, depending on what that loss looks like. 12.8% chance to make the national championship, a 5.7% chance to win the national championship. Efficiencies. Well, let's look at Indiana here. Indiana is ranked 3rd in overall efficiency, has the 2nd highest offensive efficiency, 91.5, 34th in defensive efficiency at 67.0, and then that resume, as I pointed out, strength of schedule, 103rd. That is not a good strength of schedule at all. Remaining strength of schedule, however, with games against Michigan State, Michigan just beat Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Purdue, 14th remaining strength of schedule, 14th. So, and I checked, Taven Jackson is not the starting quarterback for Indiana, so I immediately thought that'd be kind of an interesting little storyline there. But Taven Jackson on roster, who knows? Football's a contact sport. What if he had to take snaps in a playoff game at Neyland Stadium as the opposing quarterback? That'd be kind of interesting there. So, good night. Good night for Tennessee. Tennessee ranks number 7. Tennessee's loss was to Arkansas. Penn State's loss was to Ohio State. So you can't really, when you talk about what should Tennessee be ranked number 6 or, from number 7, you can't really have that argument because Arkansas is clearly not as good as Ohio State, and they only lost by a touchdown, 20-13. So Penn State 6, Texas only lost to Georgia, not really an argument there. Miami 9-0 in the ACC, Georgia, Ohio State, and then Oregon. So I think Tennessee is about as high as it can be. Again, I could have seen Indiana being the higher ranked team compared to Tennessee. Honestly, I mean, even though the strength of schedule is awful, but it's an undefeated team, I could see BYU getting up there a little bit, and everybody loves Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame, a team that's just that early season loss is nothing, right? That early season loss so embarrassing, and give them credit, they bounced back, but Notre Dame sits there as 10. Alabama's there at 11. If Alabama beats LSU, they're going to have a really, really good resume at the end of the season, and they can just hold on. So, but we'll see. There's 4 weeks left. There's a lot of football left to be played. I'm super, super excited to see kind of what all this looks like. Of course, Tennessee, it's going to be home against Mississippi State, on the road at Georgia, at home against UTEP, and on the road at Vanderbilt to end out the regular season. And we'll be talking every Tuesday night, most likely, with the latest renditions of these college football playoff rankings as they are released. So Tennessee, the 7th-ranked team in the first installment of the college football playoff rankings, the 8th seed hosting the 8th-ranked Indiana Hoosiers, who are the 9th seed. The winner would get top-seeded Oregon in this model in the quarterfinals right before, or New Year's, December 31st, January 1st. So anyway, cool stuff. Awesome stuff. Whoever said the 12-team college football playoff would devalue the regular season, you are not winning that argument any longer. It has been fun. It has been a blast, and it's making all these games so much more fun to preview and talk about, and it just means more. It really, really does. 4 teams from the SEC, 4 teams from the Big Ten. Not shocked. Will 4 teams from the SEC hold on and get in the college football playoff? With Greg Sankey running the show, would not shock me whatsoever. But this is a good sign, though. 1 team from the ACC, that's a good sign. 1 team from the Big 12, that is a good sign for teams from the SEC with 2 losses. And again, all Tennessee needs to do is control its own destiny, run the table, beat Mississippi State, beat Georgia, don't have a hiccup against Vanderbilt, and you don't have to worry about all this. But the fact that this model shows 1 team from the ACC and 1 team from the Big 12, that is a really, really good sign for the University of Tennessee. So that is that's awesome. Appreciate you guys tuning in here to get a little extra content here on a Tuesday night of Locked On Vols. Don't forget to tune in Wednesday morning. We'll be back. Josh Ward joins the show. Grant Ramey joins the show. And we talk a little bit about Tennessee basketball and Mississippi State. All that and more coming up tomorrow morning right here on Locked On Vols.